Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, March 4th, 2019, the 27th of the 1st Adar 5779. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. It is a beautiful day here, coming to you from Jerusalem. We have a great show for you here today. Mark Lavie, longtime journalist and broadcaster here in Israel, covering the news for many, many years, will be our guest after the hour. But first, let's get to some of our news here locally. Overnight, there was an attempted murder of IDF soldiers in the Binyamin area, reported by various news outlets. 2 Israeli soldiers were wounded by Arab terrorists in a car ramming attack in Binyamin overnight. One of the soldiers, who is an IDF officer, is in serious condition. The other, a border policeman, was lightly wounded. 2 terrorists were killed in the incident. What happened was a certain IDF vehicle broke down on the side of the road very late at night, and here comes along a Palestinian Authority plated car and tries to run over the soldiers. Again, 1 soldier in serious condition. There were 3 terrorists in the car. The troops fired back and killed 2 of the terrorists. So this just happened here several hours ago. And of course, we wish a speedy recovery for those who were wounded. Apparently, the soldier who was lightly wounded, the border policeman, is already out of the hospital. But we'll try to get the name of the IDF officer who was seriously wounded. Terror continues here in the Holy Land. Another example, another method which has been used frequently over the last several years, a car ramming attack. Just horrible news waking up this morning and hearing this reality. But it is, in fact, happening. And as I've said now for I don't know how many years, we must create a deterrence so that these monsters, these evil monsters, stop trying to carry out these types of attacks. A front page of the Jerusalem Post from this morning, the Palestinians, or Arabs, if you will, as it says here, Palestinians, so that's why I'm using that word, warned on Sunday that Washington had ended its role in the Middle East peace process now that the merger of the U.S. Consulate General in Jerusalem is taking place with the U.S. Embassy. It's supposed to go into effect on Monday. The move has been cast as a downgrade of ties between the 2 entities because the Consulate General had served as the de facto U.S. Embassy to the Palestinian Authority. The U.S. government says this is just a logistical move, and it is to save money, and the Palestinian Authority is not going along with it. They're basically saying they're calling this a downgrading of relations between the U.S. administration, which, by the way, does not really have much contact at this point since December of 2017 with the Palestinian Authority, ever since President Trump said he was moving the embassy to Jerusalem. So this, I think, is a positive move. Why do we need in Jerusalem an embassy and a consulate? It seems like a waste of money, and I think it does, actually, even though the U.S. says it doesn't. I think it is saying to the Palestinian Authority, you're not behaving, you're not acting nicely, and we're going to downgrade your status, if you will, by making these 2 entities, the consulate and the embassy, into one, really. I mean, the building there on Agron Street in Jerusalem will still be used in some shape or form for the PA, but it will not be an official consulate. The Consulate General, apparently she has been relocated, been reassigned, and I view this as a positive step. But if you want to get a real sense of what the Palestinian Authority thinks of the U.S. administration, this is a Palestinian Media Watch report. Trump Special Envoy Greenblatt is a mongoloid. This is an op-ed in the official Palestinian Authority Daily. They called him a mongoloid, and they said that Jason Greenblatt is somebody who seems to be suffering from Down syndrome. This is in the official Palestinian Authority Daily, an op-ed as reported by our good friend Maurice Hirsch from Palestinian Media Watch. This was yesterday. in the Palestinian Authority daily. So what is the U.S. administration supposed to think of the PA after comments like this? I mean, I would say, if I was a member of that Trump team, I would say once and for all that the PA is not a peace partner and that we need to break off any and all ties to the Palestinian Authority. I would take the Trump peace plan of, obviously, I don't know what it says. We had some hints, but I don't know exactly what it says. I would say openly, if I was President Trump, I would say this is the way they treat the United States of America. We're not even going to release any plan. We're just going to throw it, put it on the back burner and not make any type of announcement regarding a plan which possibly would call on Israel to make concessions to this evil entity, the Palestinian Authority, run by Fatah Mahmoud Abbas. I think this is another, if you need another clear sign as to who these people are, the way they described Special Envoy Jason Greenblatt, adding fuel to the fire there. So I would, if I was the U.S., I would, with self-respect, say no thank you, and I would break off any type of existing anything with the Palestinian Authority once and for all. Switching gears, of course, the biggest story over the weekend since our last show, Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit announced on Thursday his intent to indict Prime Minister Netanyahu for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Now, let's remember, this is just an announcement. The Prime Minister has not been indicted yet. The process could take up to a year. Again, the Prime Minister, after months of speculation, Mandelblit announced his intent to indict Netanyahu for bribery, fraud, breach of trust in case 4000. We're not going to get into all the details. The Bezek Walla affair for breach of trust in case 1000. Case 1000, the illegal gifts affair, and breach of trust in case 2000, the Yediot Achronot Israel Hayom affair. These are the different cases which have been investigated by the Attorney General. And of course, what is this going to mean as we head to an April 9th election? That is the major question. Initially, it seems that Benny Gantz's blue and white party is benefiting from the announcement of the indictment. But what will it mean in 30 plus days from now when Israelis actually go to the polls? Will they see this as an attempt by the left to harm the Prime Minister unjustly, throw him under the bus so that people don't vote for the Prime Minister? Or will voters do exactly the opposite and see this as an attempt basically to replace the Prime Minister instead of using the elections to replace him, an attempt to go after the jugular there of the Prime Minister and paint this picture that he's a criminal and therefore encourage people not to vote for the Prime Minister. So we'll see how it plays out. Will the public respond by giving the Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu more votes, or will they give him less votes as a result of this, what some would call a witch hunt against the Prime Minister of the State of Israel? So that has dominated the news here over the past several days. Despite that fact, the entire right-wing bloc, all the other parties who initially said that they would support Prime Minister Netanyahu, they would support him in forming a coalition after the elections, the entire right bloc, according to Lav Harkov in yesterday's J-Post, said they would be willing to join a government led by Netanyahu, despite Attorney General Mandelblit's intention to indict him. Of course, pending a hearing. Let's remember that as well. The indictment is pending a hearing. The latest polls show they may not be enough for a majority in the Knesset. Finance Minister Moshe Kahlon broke his silence Saturday night, saying he had no problem being in a Netanyahu-led government, even though from a values and moral perspective, he feels uncomfortable with the Prime Minister being suspected of such things. In other words, all of those parties who said in advance that they would support Prime Minister Netanyahu in forming a coalition will continue to support him despite the potential indictment. Most of the current coalition on Thursday, immediately after the announcement, said they would continue to support Netanyahu. So if you do the math, if you add up the numbers in terms of the coalition, again, this is a complicated system, and it's not just about voting for the Likud or voting for a certain party. After the elections, coalition, different agreements and parties have to join, because you need 60 seats to maintain a stable. You need more than that, but 60 is the minimum, 61 actually, to maintain a stable coalition. So if you add up all the numbers, according to this article by Lav Harkov, right now there are 59 seats for the right wing, 48 for the center-left, and 13 for the air parties. Those are the current stats, but we don't know at this point which parties will in fact pass the electoral threshold. So in other words, even though polls right now show that the Blue and White Party has more than Likud, if you add up all of the coalition partners, the right still has more seats. The question is, do they have enough seats to form a government? Time will tell. We'll only know that after April the 9th. We'll have to see over the next 30-plus days how the looming Netanyahu indictment, how that will impact those who come out to vote on April the 9th. Switching gears here, reported by the Jerusalem Post, the state of Texas. I love the state of Texas. They have blacklisted the global vacation rental company Airbnb over their boycott of properties, Jewish properties only, in Judea and Samaria. We welcome, quote, we welcome this decision very much, and we hope that it will be emulated by other states and other countries in the world, Foreign Minister spokesperson Emmanuel Nachshon said on Saturday night. On Friday, the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts publicly updated the list of businesses on the state's list of companies that boycott Israel to include Airbnb. Texas's move followed a decision by Florida in January to place Airbnb on its list of scrutinized companies. Under the Texas regulation that governs the list, should the Israel boycott continue, the state governmental entity shall sell, redeem, divest, or withdraw all publicly traded securities of the company, except securities. So bottom line, thank you, Texas, for standing up on the right side of history and making your intention clear that you are going to blacklist Airbnb because of their discriminatory policies against Jews and Jews only in a certain geographic location in Judea and Samaria. The IDF over the weekend, and again, I just heard this morning, also last night, Sunday night, struck Hamas posts in response to the terror balloons. The terror balloons from Hamas, unfortunately, are back. Multiple positions in the southern Gaza Strip were targeted on Saturday night and again on Sunday night. Of course, on Thursday, the UN Human Rights Council released a report claiming IDF soldiers intentionally were firing on civilians, which is a complete lie. And with all of the turmoil going on in places like Syria and Kashmir and other countries around the world, ISIS still on the move, and all the other things going on around the world, the UN takes time out of their busy schedule, the UN Human Rights Council, to single out the state of Israel and to lie about the facts. The IDF does not deliberately target civilians, and they accuse them of targeting journalists and medical personnel, and of course not saying a word about the fact that Hamas's goal is to infiltrate into the state of Israel with the purpose of murdering the first Jew that they see in sight. That is their goal, and Hamas gets a pass, and apparently this report, like all the other various reports throughout the UN's history, of course, referring to Zionism as racism and whatnot, this is no surprise that they decided not to condemn Hamas, but to condemn Israel and blame the IDF for the deaths down there in Gaza, not stating the obvious, that if the protesters, and I wouldn't call them protesters, I'd call them terrorists, armed terrorists, didn't show up, if they didn't show up on the Gaza border, would any of them have been killed? They would all still be alive today. Nevertheless, even small children are forced by Hamas to come to the border, knowing full well the IDF will defend the people and the citizens of the state of Israel and will do what is necessary, especially when these monsters try to infiltrate our southern border with Gaza. So the UN, a disgrace once again. One other article here that I'd like to discuss before we go to break, and then speak to Mark Lavie, longtime journalist here, who has a new book out called Why Are We Still Afraid? We'll get to that shortly. Hillel International, reported by JNS News. Hillel International tells Wake Forest Jewish students to, quote, lay low during anti-Israel week. So here you have an anti-Israel festival, a so-called Palestinian Rights Awareness Week at Wake Forest University, that's in North Carolina, and pro-Israel campus students and Hillel professionals disagree on the appropriate approach towards countering the latest installation of anti-Israel bias. Some campus activists want to fight the initiative head-on, in other words, the anti-Israel hate fest, which is going to be taking place at Wake Forest. However, Hillel professionals have been telling students there to lay low. Lay low, don't do anything. I mean, this is a disgrace, shameful. So Jews just should sit back and take the lies and the slander levied by these hateful anti-Israel, anti-Jewish organizations. They should just take it. Be quiet. Don't say a word. Don't stand up for Israel. That is the advice given by Hillel International to these students. It is shameful. In an email obtained by JNS to Wake Forest Hillel Israel Chair Philip Yurchenko, Director of Jewish Life on campus, Gail Brenton, instructed him to, quote, stay low-key, ask respectful, thoughtful, insightful questions, and to present alternative information to what is presented throughout the events. Lay low, guys. Don't ruffle any feathers. Just sit quietly. Let the haters spew their lies about Israel and let it all go down. I mean, is that the response, to be afraid? Should students on campus be afraid and hide in their dorms as the Israel haters come out in force? And this is the message that apparently Hillel, the Organization for Jewish Life on Campus, Hillel International, that's what they're telling the students there at Wake Forest. There are other organizations who are saying the opposite. ZOA, Stand With Us, and other organizations are not saying that. They're saying to come out and share the truth with the haters, or alongside the haters, so that people get a better picture of the reality here in Israel. This is embarrassing that Hillel is telling these students to lay low, don't do anything, stay in your dorm, go to class, be quiet, while these people come out and bash Israel. That's not the approach. That's not how this has to work. The students there in the U.S. should be out in numbers, in droves, defending Israel, defending the Jewish state, not shirking their responsibilities, not hiding in the dorms. So I don't know exactly where this line of thinking came from, if it's in fact just the leadership there at that specific Wake Forest University Hillel, or it is something that's coming from top down from the international branch or national branch in the U.S. of Hillel. But we need to find out. I'm going to take a harder look into where this is coming from. But again, JNS reporting, students there, lay low, don't ruffle any feathers, don't do anything, hang out in your dorms, be quiet, be respectful, but allow this anti-Israel hate week to go without causing a fuss. Anyway, we're going to take a break right now, come back with Mark Lavie, longtime correspondent for the Associated Press, for AP Radio, for many other news outlets, NPR, and so many others, and I'll get to all of his bio after the break. You're listening to Israel Uncensored here on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. My name is Josh Hasten, broadcasting from Jerusalem here on this beautiful Monday, March the 4th, 2019, the 27th of Adar Aleph 5779, Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet, of course, second Adar, this Thursday and Friday as we head towards Purim, and that can only mean one thing: Pesach is right around the corner. Take a short break, and we will be right back. Don't touch that dial.
The Land of Israel Network presents the Israel-inspired retreat, Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet, a 3-night event by the Dead Sea, Thursday through Sunday, March 7th through March 10th, 2019. Spend an unforgettable Shabbat with your hosts, Ari and Shana Abramowitz, Yishai and Malka Fleischer, Jeremy and Tehila Gimpel, and special guests at the 5-star Royal Dead Sea Resort. For more information, visit our special website, thelandofisrael.travel. That's thelandofisrael.travel for the Israel-inspired retreat at the Dead Sea.
And we are back. Josh Hasten here. Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is the 4th of March, 2019. Thank you so much for joining us. I am here in Jerusalem with my main man, Benjamin Bresky, engineer extraordinaire. Of course, without him, there is no sound, and we could not be doing these shows. We are going to go to the phone right now, and it's a true honor to speak to a fellow Hoosier. For those who may not know, a Hoosier is somebody from the greatest state in all of the United States, the state of Indiana. Mark Lavie, he has been covering the Middle East as a news correspondent here in Israel since 1972. He has an extensive resume. In 2014, he wrapped up 15 years with the Associated Press. He served as a reporter and editor for that news agency's print service, also Middle East correspondent for AP Radio and its 850 stations in North America. He's done all different types of journalism, print journalism, radio journalism, and he now has a brand new book out. It's his second book. It's called Why Are We Still Afraid? It's a personal look at 46 years of Israeli history, and it comes to a surprising conclusion, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Mark, it is truly an honor to have you here on Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
Josh, it's great to be talking to a fellow Hoosier. There aren't that many of us here, you know.
That is absolutely true. There is probably a handful of Hoosiers here in Israel, and it's always good to talk to somebody from the wonderful state of Indiana. So let's get right to it. The book, Why Are We Still Afraid? And from what I understand, that the conclusion is upfront. Israel has enemies, that's for sure. But as you say, unlike in the 70s, according to your book, it faces no existential threats. So I would like to ask you, with the Iranians striving to obtain a nuclear weapon and the issues we're having, of course, with Hamas on the southern border, you say there's no existential threat. We need to focus on societal problems. If you can, talk about that. Describe your findings, which you talk about in your book.
Yes, certainly. Basically what happened, Josh, is that I was reading some of my articles that I'd written in the 70s and 80s and realized how different Israel is today as a society and as facing its military and security threats. And the conclusion I came to, now I was here in 1973, as you mentioned, I made Aliyah in January 72. I was working at Israel Radio and suddenly thrown into a war situation, which I'd never been in before, and experienced what the Yom Kippur War was like. And in reading my own articles over the years, I saw how the things progressed in the situation where there were still security threats and there were still things happening, but they weren't as serious as that. They weren't existential. Now, radio people can emphasize words, and I'm not saying Israel faces no existential threats. I'm saying Israel faces no existential threats. Of course we face threats. Hezbollah's got hundreds of thousands, probably rockets aimed in this direction. Hamas has a few thousand as well. There's Iran, as you said. But I don't believe that any of these threaten the existence of the state of Israel in the way that the Yom Kippur War did in 1973, when I remember the kind of shocking thought that I might be covering my own funeral. Here's the deal. As far as Iran is concerned, you turn to page 89 of my book, which I'll reach behind me and grab off my desk, and you read an article I wrote in 2015, and here's how it starts. Here are 4 facts that turn the whole Iran debate on its head. Number 1, if Iran wants to build a nuclear weapon, it will. Number two, sanctions have accomplished all they can accomplish, and maintaining them or strengthening them would be counterproductive. Number three, Iran has an educated middle class that already pulled off a near successful revolt and is the key to Iran's future. And four, and this is the hardest one, what Iran does is more important than what Iran says. Fact of the matter is, Israeli people who know and can't be quoted by name consider Iran to be a rational player. That's to say they're not suicidal crazy mullahs. They know exactly what they're doing, and they know exactly how far they can push. They also know that Israel has the capability to defend itself in ways that we're not allowed to talk about on the radio, but we all know what they are, and so do they. So the deal is, Iran likes to talk about Israel. It's always been a good ploy for Arab leaders and Iran as well to distract from its real problems. Israel plays a very constructive role there in their view. But look at Iran has been present in Syria for decades. Iran has had a military presence, an extensive military presence in Iran for several years. And there's only been one incident for sure when Iran has actually tried to attack Israel, and that was the day after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu bragged about, if you will, or discussed in public the fact that Israel had bombed an Iran target the day before. So they fired a rocket at the Hermon, which is one of the most, Mount Hermon on the top of the Golan Heights, one of the most heavily protected and defended places in the entire Middle East. And of course, the rocket was shot down, and that was the end of that. What I'm saying is, if Iran wanted to attack Israel, it would have done it long ago. It doesn't want to. Israel is a good ploy. It's a good shield against criticism. It's good for solidarity, but they're not threatening Israel's destruction. And if they do, they know what will happen. And we'll not talk about that either at this point. Hamas as well. It makes our life kind of difficult. I agree with that. I've been in the South. I've undergone all kinds of rocket attacks and things. I know what it's like there. And in the north as well, during the last Lebanon war with 4,000 rockets falling on Israel. Very, very unpleasant. And excuse the Zionistic pronouncement here, but we have to understand that this is part of the price we have to pay for the privilege of living in the Holy Land, and we need to make this country the best country you possibly can. So instead of concentrating all the time on security.
So on that note, if that's the case, you mentioned that we have to focus on societal problems. Do you have anything specifically, and maybe perhaps it's discussed specifically in the book as well, what issues are on the top of your list in terms of improving Israeli society or allocating resources towards fixing certain problems within Israeli society?
For sure. All of these subjects are in my book in the second section, which is about society. Imagine. Let's start with the economy. The income gaps between the rich and poor in Israel are the fourth largest in the world. I don't remember the fourth, but one's the United States, second is South Korea. This is a situation that has led to the rich becoming richer and the poor becoming poorer. There are very few people who are truly starving in this country, in spite of the horrible ads that I sometimes see in American publications. Please contribute money to the starving children of Israel. There aren't starving children in Israel. It's not that bad. It's not like Egypt, where 40% of the people live under the World Bank's poverty line of $2 a day per person. It's nothing like that. But the opportunities aren't equal. We're wasting a tremendous amount of people power and of brain power simply because we're not putting the resources equally among the people who need them the most. That's one problem. Second, I write in the book about the wonderful Israeli health system. And compared to the United States, it's heaven on earth. Everyone has minimal health insurance, adequate health insurance. The rich can get better insurance if they want, and they can, and there's nothing wrong with that. But everyone's got a place in the hospital if he's sick. The trouble is, because of other priorities, we've stopped properly funding our health system. That's why the corridors are overloaded with patients in beds in the hallways. There aren't enough doctors and nurses, and they're underpaid and overworked. And the system is creaking. It has not kept up with the population increase, which, of course, is the most blessed thing that's happened to the state of Israel in the 47 years I've been here. We started out in 1972 with 3 million people. Today we have almost 9 million. It's wonderful, but we've got to keep up. The infrastructure's got to keep up. Education as well is underfunded. It's over-bureaucratized also. The system is extremely inefficient. The way we do it is not right in many ways. This is the time to say that my son is a vice principal of a high school in Jerusalem, and he can go on and on about this for hours, and probably will next chance you get. So those are just three of the problems I can come up with, which need a lot of attention. It's not just a matter of throwing money at them, Josh. It's a matter of paying attention to these things and fixing them.
If you are just joining us, we're speaking to longtime journalist here in Israel, Mark Lavie. His new book, Why Are We Still Afraid? And he just finished discussing some of these societal problems and issues which need solving here in Israel. But I want to ask you another question. And again, I don't know if this, I think perhaps this was in your prior book, if I'm not mistaken. You actually lived in Cairo for a period of time, experiencing the Arab Spring firsthand. So if you can briefly just talk a little bit about that experience living in Cairo. What was it like being a reporter in Cairo? What was it like being Jewish living in Cairo during this tumultuous time known as the Arab Spring? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's something you discussed in a previous book, no?
That's right. The only two books, I've only written two, so that's the first one. It's called Broken Spring. It grew out of my experiences, as you said, living in Cairo from 2011 to 2013. I was the night editor for the print service of the Associated Press, the regional editing hub there. Sorry to get so technical, and the Middle East correspondent for Israel for AP Radio. Has 850 stations in North America. I think you mentioned that as well. It was an absolutely fascinating experience, Josh. I'd been living here in the Middle East for 4 decades, and I thought I pretty much knew the area. I knew nothing. I learned something every day there. For example, we get the impression, just to make it local here, we get the impression that the Egyptians hate Israel and they hate Jews, and I was going to be in a lot of danger there. Well, guess what? I apparently forgot to take my kippah off my head one day when I went downstairs, and the landlord saw me. He called me to his office. You really shouldn't wear that on the street. He says, just put it in your pocket. And there was absolutely no problem. Absolutely none. I worked in an office with dozens of Egyptians, all of whom knew that I was not only an Israeli, but I'm also Jewish, and I had no problems there.
Wow.
Egyptians are among the most friendly people in the world. They really don't care if you're Jewish or not. And frankly, I figured it out that they do hate Israel. Of course they hate Israel. They hate Israel the way I hate broccoli. It's just not that important to them. It's part of their society. And all right, fine, I hate Israel and go on with my day. That's really one of the main experiences I had, of course, and learning about the way an economy works in the developing world. And specifically the Egyptian economy and how people somehow make do, and how 40% of the housing in Egypt is illegal, and 60% of the economy is off the books, and these kinds of things that were just absolutely eye-opening. And of course, the distortions in the coverage of Arab Spring by the mainstream media, including my own. The only time you heard a Muslim Brotherhood got on the Associated Press was when I went and interviewed somebody and put him out there.
Right.
The people had no connections with the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, we may not like them, but they were the government. They were an important part of the society. They were elected to lead the government for a year before they were overthrown. And so why wouldn't a journalist go out and talk to them? So those, in a word, in a very, very brief way of summarizing 2 years and some of experiences in Egypt, are the kinds of things that I discovered there and learned there. And I came back with an entirely different understanding of the Middle East. And by the way, that's where I got some of my perceptions about Iran as well, because I was able to actually talk to people in Iran directly on the telephone, which you sure can't do from here, and get my own impressions and my own knowledge of what actually is going on there, Josh.
So that book is called Broken Spring, and if people didn't catch that, they should get a copy of that as well. But turning back to your most recent, Why Are We Still Afraid? You say several other things in the book. Number one, Israel is strong but frightened today. I'd like to know what you mean in terms of being frightened today. What are we frightened of? And in addition, you also mentioned BDS, and you say that BDS, despite all of the coverage and all of the different activities targeting the people who are carrying out this BDS, you say it does little harm. So if you can, just briefly touch on both of those, the fact that you say we're frightened and the, I guess, minimal, according to your research, minimal impact BDS is actually having here in Israel.
Yes, let's start from the back because they're really the same subject. BDS makes a lot of noise, and they have used the internet in the best way that possible, I think. But I did the research and found out that in the 10 years since BDS has been alive, if you can call it that, Israel's trade to Europe has tripled. Israel's trade to the United States has doubled, and Israel's trade with Asia has increased over 5 times. So where's the effect here? The effect, of course, is psychological. The effect, of course, is the boost they give to anti-Semitism. And unfortunately, we're playing right into their hands. The more we react and set up government commissions to counteract BDS, the more we're giving them credibility and the more we're giving them a boost. So in a very quick word, that's my view of BDS. And we're frightened of BDS in the same way we're frightened of Iran, we're frightened of Hamas, and we're frightened of Hezbollah. How else can you explain that when most countries in the world, when they have an election, vote on societal issues and economic issues, and we're still voting about security? We're still welcoming generals directly from the army with a 3-year cooling off period directly into the top echelons of Israeli politics. We're still voting on what will be our policy toward the Palestinians. Our policy toward the Palestinians doesn't matter. We're negotiating among ourselves. The Palestinians have turned down 2 proper offers of a Palestinian state, supposedly what they wanted, all we could possibly offer. They turned it down flat. One of them, by the way, I discovered, and the Associated Press refused to let me write about it. That's a whole other story. It's in the book. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't really matter. Any Israeli prime minister from any party would handle the security threats exactly the same way. We no longer have to judge people on the basis of how tough they are on Palestinians or how friendly they are with Israeli Arabs. Those aren't the issues anymore. Those aren't the issues. The issues are the ones we discussed earlier, which are in the second section of Why Are We Still Afraid?
So we are nearly out of time, but I have one other question here before we let people know how they can get a copy of your new book, Why Are We Still Afraid? What is your opinion on the subject of anti-Israel media bias, specifically the foreign press here in Israel? It's perceived that the majority or a large part of the foreign press in Israel is biased towards Israel. Of course, we have many media watchdogs who are monitoring coverage coming out of Israel all the time. In all of your years in this country, what would you say in terms of the overall coverage in regard to Israel? How bad is it? Maybe you think it's very good. And, you know, just what is your take on the scrutiny from all of the various media watchdogs here?
You got a couple hours?
How about if you could summarize it in 3 minutes? Because you were on the front lines, you were reporting, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you had encounters, one-on-one with the same watchdogs. So I'm sure maybe that's your third book. I don't know.
I've been asked to write that one.
There you go. See,
we'll start in the end.
In a nutshell, what's your opinion on the subject of anti-Israel media bias as a journalist?
I have to tell you where I'm coming from, where I have been. I did not leave journalism. Journalism left me. It changed into a completely different profession from the one I started out in the 60s. It became an advocacy kind of thing where you have to choose the good guys and the bad guys. And of course, we all know that the Israelis are the bad guys and the Palestinians are the poor, poor victims. And that is why when I discovered Ehud Olmert's offer, the prime minister's offer to the Palestinians of a state in the equivalent of all of the West Bank, all of the Gaza Strip, parts of Jerusalem, and a corridor between the West Bank and Gaza, which never existed before, and the Palestinian president turned on his heel and walked out the door and never met the Israeli prime minister, Ehud Olmert, again, I thought I had a pretty big story there, right? So I went running into my boss's office, and he said, "That's not a story. You probably heard my complaints all the way wherever you were sitting." I was unable to convince these people that this is an earth-breaking story, that this really makes a difference, because it didn't fit into the box. And the box is Israel bad, Palestinians victims. I'm convinced of that. So, I exiled myself to Cairo. I didn't go there willingly. I had to get out of the Jerusalem Bureau, out of Jerusalem, out of this toxic scene of biased reporting as quickly as I could. I wasn't old enough yet to retire, so I did 2 years in Cairo, and then I retired. By the way, the journalism in Cairo was not a hell of a lot better than the journalism in Jerusalem, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the first book. I already told you some about that. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. The situation is absolutely untenable. There's much too much attention paid to the Israel-Palestinian issue, and when it's paid, people come here with a chip on their shoulder to explain how the Israelis are torturing the Palestinians and preventing them from having their rights and their self-determination, and the horrible things and the horrible barrier and the roadblocks, and oh my goodness, it's all in the book. Not all of it. Even in the book, I couldn't write all of it. So yes, absolutely right.
Yeah. So we'll look forward to that third book about media coverage here in Israel. But in the meantime,
if you buy the first one and the second one especially, it's called "Why Are We Still Afraid?" It's available on Amazon, and the easiest way to find it is to go to my website, and that's easy to find also. In one word, it's marklavieauthor.com.
So check that out, marklavieauthor.com. The name of the book is Why Are We Still Afraid? Also on Amazon. It's available in ebook. It is truly an honor, Mark, to speak to you today, a fellow Hoosier here in Israel. As we said before, not many of us here, but always a pleasure to speak to somebody from the old country, from back in Indiana, and would love perhaps to get together in the near future, talk about Indiana basketball, and everything else that goes along with everything wonderful from the Hoosier State. So I wish you much success with this second book, and hope we can talk again soon. And if you want, just, if you want, you gave out the website, but if you have an email or anything else that you want to give out, now's the time.
That'll do it. It's marklavieauthor@gmail.com is the email, and the website marklavieauthor.com will guide you to both the ebook and the paperback.
Great. It's a pleasure speaking to you, and good luck. Good luck with the book.
It was really fun. Thanks.
That's it for today, folks. Israel Uncensored here on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com for Monday, the 4th of March, 2019, the 27th of Adar, Aleph 5779. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, check out my new page, Josh Hasten, Israel Advocacy and Journalism. On Twitter, at Josh Hasten. And as I've said before, I just started this whole new Instagram account, and I'm still learning how to use it, but it is up and running. So be in touch with me during the week. Big shout out to our engineer, producer extraordinaire, Benjamin Bresky, for all the work he does, Tabitha Epstein, to make all these shows a reality. All the other hosts here on the Land of Israel Network, go check out their shows as well. Most importantly, between now and when we speak again, please God, next Monday, everybody out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Have a great week from beautiful Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the Jewish people. All the best.
The question is, why are the Jews there in the first place? The Jewish people have been yearning to return to their ancient homeland for a long time.
The Yishai Fleischer Show, the voice of a new generation of pro-Israel activists.
And there's only two kinds of minorities in the Middle East, armed or unarmed.
Inspiring minds to think differently.
That jihadism doesn't just attack Jews. it attacks Christians, and it mostly attacks Muslims.
Inspiration, spirituality, and politics.
So first and foremost, this country is here to defend Jewish people and to live in its ancestral homeland.
Listen to the Yishai Fleischer Show every week on the Land of Israel Network at the Land of